Swinger, sex, and orgasm. In this episode, I will be talking with the creator of the Accidental Swinger podcast, Myrina and Tristan, where they share tips on what swinger is like, what do they do, but tips for better orgasm and how to overcome performance anxiety, and a lot more golden nuggets. So stay to the end. I'll see you on the inside. This podcast is for you, the modern man. I'm Dr. Ann Trung, your host. I'm an intimate health medical doctor and best-selling author of the book Erectile Dysfunction Fix. I'll do a deep dive into sexual health and performance and how it affects men of all ages and backgrounds. So let's get started, and be sure to visit my website at sexualhealthformenpodcast.com for more information and resources from the show. See you on the inside. Well, hello everyone and Modern Man. Today I'm so excited because I have Myrina and Tristan. They have been married for 27 years and they are the creator of the Accidental Swinger podcast. And today we're going to talk with them about some of the pearls they've learned and their experiences as swingers. So welcome, Myrina and Tristan.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, I'm so excited. I've been thinking about this episode for actually days and been doing a lot of research. And the more research I do about it, I have like 10,000 other questions. But today, just for the podcast, I just wanted to limit it to questions that I've always been wanting to know. So how did you guys get into swinging?
The really short version of that story is that we went out to dinner with neighbors in our neighborhood that we did not know were also living a swinger lifestyle. And they thought that we might make perfect candidates to enjoy that lifestyle. And so they presented it to us and we decided to basically go for it. This is a very short version of this. It was about a 6-week process, but we decided to go for it and try this ethical non-monogamy thing for ourselves. And we have really enjoyed it. It really has been a game changer for us in our relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
What made you decide, to let's do this? Because that's a pretty bold move for a monogamous couple to be able to do that. And what were your concerns or challenges?
Well, it actually was somewhat accidental because when we went out with this couple for the dinner that Myrina was talking about, at some point during the evening, we all kind of started making out with with our cross spouses, and that kind of just arose without really any conversation. The conversation came afterwards when we were walking home after the date, and to be clear, that was all that happened on that particular date. But that just the making out. But as we were walking home to through the neighborhood at 3:00 in the morning, we said, what the fuck just happened? What was that? And we both said, well, we don't know, but that was a lot of fun, and let's do that again. And so that's kind of how we started the conversation between the two of us.
I think it's also, though, important to point out, we had even talked about, though, some things when we were younger,
Yeah.
when we were first dating and first engaged. We had talked about, and actually when we were after the birth of our second child. So the conversation had come up a couple times during talk about fantasies, like what would be fun to do. And actually one of the things HBO used to have a special called Real Sex. That ought to date us for anybody who's on, because you can't find that show out anymore. But they used to have this show called Real Sex.
Yeah, I used to watch that too.
And it was a great show. And they highlighted a lot of these different things that we didn't know anything about, very kinky and taboo and sex and, orgasms and sex toys. And one of the shows, they highlighted a place where people could go on vacation and basically have sex with other people. And then they went home. And we thought, wow, wouldn't that be amazing to do that? So we had talked about that, but the most recent time had been about 16 years ago that we even had brought it up.
Right.
And there was never the right time, never the right place. It was always just a fantasy. It was a fantasy of something that would happen. But when the opportunity came up then to move forward with this couple in this particular lifestyle, we thought this is a way to kind of check out some of this fantasy that we had talked about in the years previous. So I think that probably was a little bit helpful why we were able to jump in a little bit more, because we had talked
Yeah.
about, if this ever happened, wouldn't that be fun? But we never really pursued it at all. And it wasn't on the radar, but I think that softened it just enough for us to go, well, we've talked about this before, so let's talk about it again. And then that brought it all back up.
Yeah, it wasn't just completely out of the blue. We had somewhat of a foundation, but probably not as solid of a foundation.
I mean, it was years and years and years ago.
We probably should have talked about it more than we did. But
when it first started, we talked a lot though when we decided to move forward.
Right. So then it started out with like kissing, and then are you concerned that if Tristan, if you see Myrina see Tristan, you feel jealous if he or she is with another person?
No, actually, I find that very exciting, and that's always been a fantasy of mine, to see Myrina with other men and women, and any combination. It's always been something that I've always wanted to see and to experience.
So even the first time that you see it, it was exciting for you.
Oh, yeah.
There was no jealousy.
No
sense of jealousy whatsoever.
And we can talk more about jealousy, but as far as just watching the physical act, it's incredibly erotic and exciting.
And jealousy does happen, but I think what Tristan's basically saying is like, that may not be the sex part.
Yeah, the sex part is
not the part that causes the jealousy. It's the emotions that go around the sex part. If there start to happen to be emotions with other play partners,
Right.
That's where jealousy will usually come in. Or, man, they're getting to do something more fun than I'm doing, so maybe you get jealous about that if they're doing something. I don't know, but those, for us, that's more the jealousy piece versus the same thing where I don't necessarily watch Tristan have sex with other women. We have sex in the same room usually with other couples, and I'll glance over and just kind of see, is he having a good time? That makes me happy. That makes me smile. I know he's giving her a good time, and so that makes me happy. That makes me smile, but I don't need to sit and watch it. So for me, that's not something that I find erotic or stimulating. But what I love is the fact that he's so happy. And that makes me feel amazing. It's an amazing gift to be able to give my husband, to have him have so much joy by being with other women and pleasing other women, and those experiences that he has with them. And then we talk about them afterwards. So I get to hear about it, what excited him, what was great for him, and things like that. So that can be fun.
Yeah, and I'll echo that the other direction as well. I love when she's being pleased. I love when she's being fulfilled. It's very gratifying for me.
Do you actually see the partner that you're with afterward, outside of the party, in a more social setting at all, or that's kind of like the one of the rules, you don't go beyond the party?
Yeah, I mean, often we do. We see people, because we're more connection type people, and there are, we call them social swingers or sexual swingers. We consider ourselves more social swingers because we like to form friendships with people and see people multiple times, and we enjoy meeting and becoming friends with couples outside of the bedroom as well as in.
Interesting. So, on that note, what is the difference between swinging, open relationship, and polyamory?
So that's a really good question. So an open relationship is one generally where the partners have decided to open their relationship. It doesn't necessarily define how many partners you have. So it could be that an open relationship that they just have one extra partner, or they might be like we are in the swinger community where we have multiple play partners. But again, even in the swinger community, there's different ways, as Tristan was saying, the social swingers versus the sexual swingers. It can be whatever anybody makes it. And so there are some people that just want to meet people, new people, have sex with them, and they don't want to see them again. And that's totally fine. That's how they want their relationship with the swinging lifestyle to be. And that's amazing. And that's what works for their relationship. That's great. We know that we are, as Tristan said, very connection oriented. And so I prefer actually getting to know the person, the people that we're with, because I think that increases the sexual, intensity. When you get to know someone and you're friends with them, or you can talk about your fantasies, or you see them more than once, and hey, next time let's try this. So I like that piece of being able to do that. So an open relationship, an open marriage, though, doesn't necessarily define how many partners they have. It's just saying that they are free to go out and be with others. So swingers will generally then, there's different ways that they swing. It could be couples with couples. It could be the male, female, male, the MFM relationship, where there's a two women and a man dynamic. There's sometimes the two men and a woman dynamic. There's a lot of different ways to mix and match, but all of that falls under the swinger umbrella, depending on what your relationship is. Then there's also what they call hot wifing, which is something that we kind of define for ourselves, is that I have, as the woman in this relationship, I have the right to choose my sexual partners. I invite Tristan, or maybe I don't. I go out on dates if I choose to go out on dates, and I have that ability. That's our relationship that we've decided. So if I meet someone and I want to go out on a date with them, and I schedule a date and I go out and we have sex, Tristan may not even be invited to come to that, or I might ask him a second, maybe he gets to come for the second date, or maybe he doesn't get to show up at all, and I just get to be with this person by myself. So that's kind of called a hot wife piece. But there's just a lot of different variations. Polyamory, on the other hand, is where you really are making a relationship with another person or persons. So we happen to, in swinging, we never thought that this would happen for us, because being a polyamorous couple and finding another couple to be in a relationship is really, really hard. It's very hard to get four people to connect and relate to each other. So that's a very challenging dynamic. We happen to stumble into that. And so we actually have a polyamorous relationship with another couple. And to us, that means we share our lives together. We share our lives with each other. We don't necessarily share bank accounts or houses, in the sense of we all live in our own separate houses, but we spend 50% of our time with each other at each other's houses. And our kids know each other, and our families, we've turned it into our family dynamic. We go on vacations together. We, have TV night at the house, all of us with our kids as well. And so that is what a polyamorous relationship is, really where you bring people in, you're creating a life, and you're living a life with each other included. In swinging, you're not really doing that. You're friends, you're going out to dinner, you may have sex, whatever that works, or you're going out to a club or a party, but they're not necessarily a part of your life. But in polyamory, those folks are there. It's part of your life. It's part of your dynamic. It's who you are.
Right. So from what I hear, you kind of do swinging and live and but polyamory at the same time.
We do, and our dynamic is very different, and it's proving to be challenging, because we were started to get with this couple right before COVID. We were already all connected and things like that. When COVID hit, though, we all quarantined together, so to speak, and social bubbled together. So our relationship really had the opportunity to grow a lot stronger, because there weren't other people around because of COVID. And now, though, we still are open swingers. We still have, we still go out and see other people. We tend to now do it all together as a foursome, where we all four will go to a party together. But everybody has their right to play with whoever they want when we get to the party. There's no rules. The rules are that just don't leave the facility, don't leave the building without telling somebody that you're leaving the building. That's really about the only rule when we're all together at a party. But we always were trying to say, like, if you meet a couple that you really hit it off with, usually we all usually hit it off, because we're all kind of the same. And so it's usually ends up being a really fun group dynamic with usually two or three other, one or two other couples. And it's a lot of fun.
Wow. So do you let everybody you meet know that you're swingers, or is that something you want to keep private? How do you kind of restrict that information, if you do?
It really depends upon the context, and because we don't want to make people uncomfortable. And so now the fact is that most of the people we meet are swingers, because that's who we enjoy being around. That's who we enjoy socializing with. Swingers are very open and fun people. and we're open and fun, and we enjoy meeting other open and fun people, whether we play with them or not. But if we're just out in what we call the vanilla world, just in regular life, no, we don't tell people. It's as I said, we don't want to make people uncomfortable or kind of force our lifestyle on others.
But I will also say though, we've gotten spoiled to where we live. We live in a
Yeah.
really liberal area, so to speak. Like we're in the Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater area. And so when you go to St. Petersburg is a very eclectic, um, relationship rich with all sorts of types. And there's a huge gay and lesbian LGBT plus Q community down there. And so when we're in those kinds of places and spaces, it's very easy for us to, like, I'm holding my boyfriend's hand, but I might be holding Tristan's hand at the same time, or I'll kiss him and then I'll kiss the other one. And down there, like,
Yeah, nobody
no
bats
one
an
even
eye.
pays
Yeah.
attention. They're just like, how are we splitting the check?
Right.
We're just like, we'll split it down the middle. We don't keep score. And so we are very fortunate to be able to live this lifestyle in a place where we really can be more out in public. And so I think that we don't necessarily have to tell anybody. They figure it out, because that usually they're like, I don't know who's married to who, and it doesn't really matter. Here's your, whatever it is that you're doing. And people don't tend to care, but I think that's a lot of because that's where we live. And
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So I think we do kind of take that for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think that, at least where I live, that it may not be the case. I live in a suburb of Virginia, and in a small town, and but I do know there are swingers club here in my town as well too. So, but people still whisper, oh, they swing, but it's not, openly discussed. So. I just wanted to give me a picture of, like, when you go to a swinger party. What's the steps? What's the dynamic? What are the rules? And how do you know if that person wants you to wants you to get together with them? There are any rules, or there are no rules?
But I don't know that we can cover all of this in this particular time frame for this particular podcast, but there are rules, and it really depends on where you are. So if you are at a party, that's a swinger party. So in other words, someone's having what we call a house party, and everybody's invited, and you can choose to hook up or not. Most people will. That's why they're there. And so it really is a flashback to all of those things you had to do when you were dating. Oh, it can be really hard. So it's like, if you stand up against the wall like a wallflower, you're going to be a wallflower. It's no different than it was in high school or college or anything else. So you have to learn how to talk to people. You have to learn how to put yourself out there. So how do you know if someone's interested? It's the same way. You just feel a connection. Is there a connection or not? And then if you feel like there's a connection, you say, hey, do you want to go upstairs? You want to take this conversation upstairs? You want to take this conversation to the bedroom? Or do you want to go play? And the terminology in the swinger community is, when you say something, you're going to go play, or you're going to go have a play date, that means you're going to go have sex, or you're making a date to go have sex somewhere or do something. So you say, hey, you want to go play? That means, do you want to go back here and go have sex? During this party or whatnot. But it is a flashback to all of that insecurity and tough social norms and personalities that you have to kind of pull out of your back pocket, because you haven't had to do it probably in a really long time. If you've been married for 26 years, you're not flirting with anybody to try and get laid. So this is a little bit different when all of a sudden you have to start doing that again, and your wife is across the room still.
I was never particularly good at it anyway, and so I'm much better now than I ever was, but it's not easy.
Uh-huh. And these are strangers that you meet. You've never met them before.
It depends. We have groups of friends that have house parties pretty regularly, that and we tend to know the people that are there, but not always. Sometimes we do walk into, like, the last party that we went to, we didn't know anybody other than the host and hostess, and so it just depends on on the composition of the group.
Right. So are there any rules? I mean, any, like, relative rules? If you do this, you get kicked out. Or, or or at the house party? Is there some type of setting that needs to be for optimal, party?
Well, I think that, uh, yeah, I mean, a couple of things. Everybody tends to be well behaved, and everybody tends to be very respectful. And, we all believe in consent, and, we're going to ask. And uh, our level of consent for just like touching and kissing is way lower than certainly in the vanilla world. And it's at a swingers party, it's not uncommon for people to just come up and put their arm around you and or kiss you on the cheek or
Rub your butt.
rub your butt. Yeah. And so the fact that you're at a house party has provides a certain level of implied consent that level of touching and interaction is going to probably be okay. But nobody's going to drag you off to a bedroom and
Right.
and have sex with you without your consent. And so we tend to be very in our community, we're very we're very social, we're very respectful. And so as far as rules, yeah, just be
Yep.
kind, be respectful.
Right.
As far as settings are concerned, it's going to vary depending upon upon the party. We have one party that we go to, very tightly run in the sense that the social hour is between 8 and 9. At 9 o'clock, the hostess says, "All right, everybody's clothes off and get busy." And so literally, and that's the way that because they like to go to bed. They don't want to be up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They want to get going at 9 and have everybody out of their house by midnight.
And we respect that,
yeah,
and
we
it's
do.
awesome. And
Yeah.
because you better get there. If you want to not be naked when you walk in the door, you better get there before 9 o'clock, because she will make you take your clothes off. And so that doesn't, like he said, I mean, you have to be having sex, but if you want some warm up time, you get there.
If you want the social time, you got to get there.
Yeah, get there at least half an hour and 45 minutes early.
Yeah, but other parties it's very much a free form thing. We have another party that we go to frequently where all of the social activity basically can go on all night long downstairs, and then all the sex happens upstairs. And they say, we ask that you only play upstairs, and then the downstairs is for the social time. And you can go upstairs and have sex and take a break, go back downstairs, get a snack or something to drink, talk to people, find somebody else to go upstairs with.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the way that party flows. They're all different though, and there's no real set pattern.
So, and I want to ask you, Tristan. So, when you're at a party, how many times do you have sex, and how many times you orgasm, and how easy or difficult was that for you?
It's there's a lot to unpack there. The best party that I've had, I was with 4 different women, but and when I'm with multiple women in an evening, I don't typically orgasm with each one. I'll play with one, and then we'll take a break, play with another, or take a break. But sometimes, I do orgasm more than once in the evening, and I have to take a longer break when that happens. The other question sounds to me like asking about performance, and sometimes I do have difficulty performing in group settings because it can be anxiety provoking for me. I suffer from a lot of social anxiety and always have. And so, sometimes I get really amped up when I'm in a group setting like that. And sometimes it's difficult to perform, or I can usually get hard, but sometimes I can't maintain an erection when there's a lot of activity going on. I get distracted. So if we're on a bed with, 8 or 10 people, which has happened, and sometimes I get lost in what all is going on, and I get distracted and can't stay hard. Sometimes
And what happened when that happened? What happened when you can't stay?
um I use my mouth and my fingers.
Okay, all right. So you try to please her.
Oh yeah, no, and that in itself adds a lot of pressure because I'm very, very attuned to wanting to please my partner of the moment, and that's very important to me. And so sometimes that in itself adds a lot of pressure, which makes it difficult to perform, ironically, because I put a lot of pressure on myself. And so sometimes I just need to remind myself, this is fun, relax. I don't have to have a goal here, but a lot of times I do. And so if I'm able to get out of my head and more into my body, that's when everything works okay.
And how do you do that? How do you overcome that performance?
It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress. I'm still working on that.
Well, like you said, you were distracted. If you're distracted, and you're not in the moment there, but what you said earlier was that you want to get out of your head into your body, and you said it's a work in progress. So let's say you were in the moment and you start to lose. How do you get back into the moment again and arouse yourself?
I try to focus on the woman that I'm with, and to just focus on her, because when my attention gets pulled away, and that's easy to have happen, for my attention to get pulled away if all this is going on around me. And I love watching Myrina and being aware of Myrina when she's having sex. And so that in itself sometimes is very distracting, because I want to see what she's up to, and I want to watch her, and I want to hear her. And so that's actually been one of my biggest challenges, because we tend to be at least in the same area, whether it's at a party or at a club, or a playroom at a resort or wherever. And so I tend to be within earshot at least, and she's very loud. And so, it's a dual-edged sword, because that really turns me on, but it can also pull me away from the partner that I'm with. And so that's an ongoing struggle for me, just to balance those, balance the excitement with with getting distracted.
The other thing too, if I can add in a quick woman's perspective, two things I would also say. The other thing too is, and you guys didn't bring this up, is that after 20, 30 years together, all of a sudden this man has to wear condoms again.
Yes, that's a huge piece of it.
He hasn't had to wear condoms in years.
Yeah, that's a huge piece.
Years and years, yeah. And so that, in and of itself, doing that all over again in your 50s is incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is, if it's a smaller group setting, like say it's maybe just 8 couples, and we're there and our other couple is there, if Tristan and I are playing together, because sometimes we will actually play together, we'll be having sex with other people, we're all trading and we end up with each other, which is fun. But if I know he's having a problem, or my other partner's having a problem, you can feel it. A woman can feel it. And I will usually stop and say, well, let me give you a blowjob, or change some positions, or do something. And that helps me also when I'm with partners that are not my regular partner, because if I feel that, if I can tell they're starting to lose their erection, maybe they're watching their wife. That's very common. And so I'm like, hey man, I'm not offended at all. Watch your wife and really enjoy that moment, because guess what? When you're ready to come back to me after you've had that break, because you've been watching her, you're probably going to be amped up and ready to go. So I will gladly give you 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever you need. I'll go get a drink. I mean, there's so many different things you can do. And I think as women, we can support our partners that way by, or even asking, hey, do you want me to give you a blowjob? Can I do that? Or is there something different we can do? Can we try something? Do you want to switch a position, and not make it awkward for the guy too, because you may not know him as well. So sometimes I'll just say, hey, do you mind if we change positions? Knowing that that's something is challenging them. And then when we're changing position, I might then just decide to give him a blowjob, knowing that probably will help. And so even though that might have been my goal, I wouldn't tell him that, because he might think, oh, she has to give me a blowjob, so I get hard again or whatever. Just don't even make it an issue. Just say, hey, let's change around. And while I'm here, I might as well just suck your dick for a minute. And then that will help get them re-stimulated. Yeah. So, there's things that the women can do too, if you're savvy and you're paying attention.
Right.
Right. I like how you say that. What other things can a woman do to stimulate a man when you feel that he may be losing or distracted watching his wife? What other things beside oral and changing position, Myrina?
I think those are the two big ones for me, but also depending on the person and how well you know them. A lot of times it can be a little bit of dirty talk can help, maybe whispered in the ear, make it sexual and sexy. Let me think, what else could we do? I just think it's what else do women do?
I was thinking about we were with another couple. So there were 6 of us, our couple, and then another couple, and we were in a hotel room, and I was on top of the woman that we had just met that evening, and I started to, and I was doing well, but then I started to kind of, run out of steam, lose my breath a little bit, and then when I lose my breath, then a lot of times will lose my erection. So I started slowing down, and right when I did that, my girlfriend kind of, I think, sensed what was going on. So she started like playing with my balls from the underside, and I like it when she plays with my ass a little, and so she did that. And the woman that I was having sex with, and I don't know how she knew this or just sensed it, she reached up and like put her hands around my throat, and I'm kind of kinky, and I really like, so the combination of those two things, this is a rare thing, but that's something that just happened in the moment, and that everybody was on the same page, and that did the trick. And but you can't count on that all the time. I'm not always going to have my girlfriend behind me as an assist, and the woman that I'm with isn't always going to know, oh, Tristan likes to be choked. It just kind of happened that way. Yeah, and so there have been several variations on that theme that I can think of.
Well, how do you guys have this solid dynamic, and you have such an ease of communication with one another. How do you maintain that, particularly with swinging as well, and having another amorous relationship? How do you have that open communication and approach difficult subject at times?
You need to be, and this is not easy to do, especially after you've been together for so long, but you need to be able to become vulnerable to your partner and to overcome that fear of vulnerability. And I say it's difficult sometimes, especially after all these years, because we have set patterns in terms of how we communicate, how we talk, how we think, and how we behave. And so to mix that up after so long is scary. And to say things like, yeah, I really would like to have sex with this other woman. Well, that's terrifying to say to your wife after so many years. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of vulnerability, but it's that very vulnerability, when it's accepted and not and rewarded, that reinforces that making yourself vulnerable and making yourself open. And in that vulnerability, it creates trust, and the more that you trust, the more intimate you can become with your spouse, and the more intimacy you have, the more love that you have. And so it's a really neat cycle, but it takes overcoming some fear in the beginning. And I found that the more that we've always had, I think, good communication, but in the last 4.5 years, it's just skyrocketed and gone from, very good to expert level communication, which I think is, well, I think it's required, to be successful as a swinger. You might be able to get away with mediocre communication for a while in this, but ultimately it's going to catch up. And so I think that for us, at least, our level of communication is directly related to our success as swingers and our success in our marriage. And to me, it all comes back to being trusting.
Well, and the other thing too, when we first started on this journey, we made a vow to each other that our marriage had to be the priority, and we had to talk about everything. And so we really said, we have to make a promise to talk about the stuff that we don't want to talk about. And so can we promise that to each other? Because if we can't, then this is going to not be okay. It's going to hurt us. We've got to be able to talk about the hard stuff. And we really talked about the fact of, can we talk about the hard stuff and make that commitment to each other? And we did. And that's the piece that has, I think, really kept us on a good path, because even when it has gotten hard, we said, we know we've made that promise to each other that we have to talk about it. when you are in an ethically non-monogamous relationship, you don't have to lie about wanting to have sex with somebody else, or about being interested in somebody else, or about flirting with somebody else. You don't have to cover any of those things up. It's our gift to each other that you go and be you. You go and do that. So there's no reason to lie about it, but a human nature is to not want to hurt the person that, or to, you may not want to tell the truth, or you fear that you're going to hurt them. And we've had to have those conversations with each other. Like, actually Tristan was the one that came to me with the first man that I actually had serious feelings for. And he said, "You're having really hard, serious feelings for him. And I'm not sure I'm okay with it." And I said, "No, I'm not." And he said, "Yeah, you are. You need to really think about this. You really are." And I realized I was kind of hiding that from my own self, even because I didn't want to give it up. I really liked him, but Tristan was the one that picked up on it and said, "You need to think about this, but let's talk about it. Not that you can't do it, but we need to talk about it." And so that led to a really great conversation and understanding about the fact that I think I was even trying to shut that door on myself, because I wasn't going to have feelings for someone. This is my husband. How could I do that? But when we realized we're both that way, we're going to have feelings for each other. We better tackle that now. I mean, we're going to have feelings for other people. We better tackle some of that now and make sure that we can handle that. The other thing too is that we've learned is that when you're married for a really long time, a lot of times something you do that the other person makes you angry or irritates you, you may shove it under the rug, or you just may blast them instantly. What we've kind of gotten a balance about is, if something's bothering one of us about what the other one's doing, especially in the lifestyle, we usually will take a step back and kind of process it for ourselves now. Like, why is that? Why am I bothered by this? That way I can go to Tristan and say, "I have an issue. Let me tell you what it is. I'm not saying you have to stop, but I don't like it when you act in this particular way. When you're with this particular woman, I feel really left out. Can you just make sure, or what can we do so that I don't have those feelings? Or if I'm feeling this feeling, how can I come up to you safely with her standing there, but I need a little bit of love and attention from you," or whatever that looks like. I mean, there's so many variations of that, but these are the kinds of talks we've had to have. And it's amazing how great that is to say, "Hey, just letting you know, come and I'm going to go play, but I'm going to come and give him a big kiss to let him know I know you're here and you're still in my heart and you're still in my mind." I mean, that's the main thing. And so those types of things, those little pieces of communication that we've worked hard on kind of refining that for ourselves and our relationship, that has led to it being even better and stronger. And it's still hard. And there are still things that we still have to give each other time to process and let it come up on that person's terms. Like, we'll talk about it when I'm ready to talk about it, if it's my issue or if he's ready. We don't blast each other now. We give each other the room and the space that we need to come to something ourselves. And sometimes it may not even come up because you figured it out for yourself, that you might not have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because it's all about open communication and like Tristan says, showing your vulnerability, but yet knowing what you're uncomfortable with. Now that, a whole sentence in there, because a lot of us don't understand what we're uncomfortable with, or know why we're uncomfortable with that, and then trying to articulate that to, our partner. I mean, I myself, sometimes with my husband, we have, challenges as well, because you don't know what you're uncomfortable with. You just know, "Well, I'm uncomfortable, but I don't know exactly what that is," and then having to articulate it. And you really hit in the head is in communication, being vulnerable, and sharing how you feel without blaming. Um, right, and having an open communication on both sides, and asking that person what you would like to happen, right? Because a lot of times you would state the problem, but you don't tell that other person, "Well, if you're with a woman, I would like to have some love as well too, and show me that." And then he'll say, "Oh, why didn't you say so?" Right? Because yeah, right. But sometimes we forget that. We forget to ask for what we want, right? Because we're thinking that the other person will probably know that. And that may not be the case. So I love what you share about the communication. So how has being do swinging strengthen your marriage?
I think really what we just said, we could repeat, because it's the communication and the trust that has created the greater intimacy and greater love and strengthened our marriage. it's I think it really does come back down to those fundamental core, of communication, trust, and intimacy.
I think also because we're going through a stage in our lives, and a lot of times I kind of equate it to people. We went through the bumpy part of our marriage. We've been together a really long time, and I think everybody hits a point probably in their marriage where, like, well, we met when we were young, we've grown different directions, and we managed through all of that, and we stayed together, and we knew we were going to be fine and everything was going to be okay. When we started in this lifestyle and we made this commitment to each other to communicate and make sure that we have that information given to each other, or that we're processing for ourselves, the other thing that's happened is that our bodies and our own selves have gone through some changes as well. And I, like I said, I kind of equate it to maybe people getting divorced, and now all of a sudden, if I were a divorced woman at this age, that I have to go out and learn how to date again, and I have to learn how to have sex with other people again, and I have to learn all those things. And we're going through that with each other, and so we're rediscovering our own sex and sexuality on our terms, but with each other,
Mhm.
with other people. So it's those, that kind of growth makes us stronger. Makes our relationship stronger because we've been with each other for so long. Now we're getting to see each other kind of revitalized and
Mhm.
re-energized and all of those things. And Tristan's becoming much more outgoing and comfortable in his introverted skin. He's an introverted guy, and he's learning how to, handle all those things. And it's just a different point of life, but we're still doing this together. And I think that's part of also what continues to strengthen it, because when you experience experiences with people, that's where you get strength in your relationship with them, whether it's friends or somebody going through crisis with each other or things like that. It bonds you together. Well, we're getting this bonding through going through something that's totally changing. We're changing our marriage dynamic, but it's a bonding moment for
Yeah,
us. So
absolutely.
it's really helped us grow.
Yeah.
So when a couple has a difficulty in their marriage, should they look at swinging or not really? Because you got to have a tight relationship first before you start swinging. What are your thoughts?
I think that as a general rule, yeah, you need to have a very strong marriage. Now, that doesn't mean that people who maybe are having a little bit of difficulty and they just want to spice things up, and then they might be able to experience all the things that we're talking about, but that's dangerous. And certainly if you have a weak marriage, absolutely not. This is not going to repair your marriage. But it's I wouldn't foreclose it for a couple who maybe has a solid marriage, but maybe just they need to spice things up a little bit. But understanding the risk, and that is risky.
Yeah. And I think if it can help, but if you're looking to add non-monogamy to help strengthen your marriage, then you need professional help to help you help it. So find a marriage counselor that is very open to non-monogamy.
Mhm.
I think there are lots of them out there. They are there, I promise.
Yeah.
And if this is something that you think you want, walk through it with your partner about, if you're just feeling that you weren't meant to be monogamous, there are ways that maybe you two can figure that out, and then have it be a fun and exciting thing for both of you and strengthen your marriage. But if you're not communicating well already, have someone help you start to lay that foundation of having the good communication, because that's what's going to save you in the end. Because your human nature will tell you to hide things from each other, because you don't want, like I said, you don't want to hurt them. Or it's our tendency, like, oh, if I flirt with this woman, or if I'm flirting with a man that I know is going to irritate Tristan because he's everything that Tristan isn't, I don't want Tristan to get jealous, maybe I won't tell him. That's so not the way
Yeah.
to do it. You have to even get through even all of those things. And so just find someone that can help you navigate those waters. I think it's obviously an amazing thing. It's an amazing relationship to have. We love it. We are not Ken and Barbie. We are the typical mid 50s professionals, family, it's just typical. And so, people can do this, is kind of what I'm trying to get at, but there are resources and things out there for you, and people that you can look to help you get through the process. if that's something that you're interested in. So it's doable. It's just, it would be smart to have a little bit of extra guidance.
Very well said. Now, what challenges have come up between you and Tristan when doing what being a swinger, and how have you guys managed them?
Challenges, gosh, there's been we had challenges at the beginning with about how we were feeling when we started having feelings for others. We've had a lot of challenges. If you listen to our podcast, so we started a podcast called the Accidental Swingers Podcast, which you talked about. The podcast chronicles our journey. So if people want to listen about people going through the journey of going into non-monogamy, you should listen to the podcast. And there are lots of podcasts out there, and we often will recommend others if you listen to ours. So there are others out there. So if you don't jive with us, that's fine. Find a couple or people or podcasts that you do jive with, because it will open your eyes. The things for us that were challenging when we started having feelings for other, when Tristan wanted to make this particular girl his girlfriend, and he said to me, what did you say? She brings out.
The gist was, and I don't recall the exact words,
Yeah.
but the gist was that she filled needs that I had that Myrina didn't
Couldn't fill or didn't
want to.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we've been married a really long time. And at first, of course, I was incredibly offended and got really mad and told him basically to go F himself on that one, because, F you, I'm your wife. I'm supposed to be everything that you want. What else could you want? I'm Myrina. My God, what else could you possibly want? But I realized in us talking about that even more, and that was painful. And that was a risk for him to have to say. I don't think he thought I was going to react the way that I reacted, but I did, because I was like, up yours, screw you. I'm your number one. But then I realized, oh my God, I've been with this man for, at that time, 27 years. And guess what? I love him, but he's not new and exciting to me anymore. His stories are the same stories I've heard for a really long time, and it's sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, you're talking, la, 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 la. When you meet someone who's new and you get that new relationship energy, that's exciting. And that makes you feel on top of the world when you have someone that just wants to hear all about it and laughs at all your jokes because you're amazing and wonderful and smart and all these things that you are. But when someone's been with you for so long, I might not show that as much. And I think that was a piece that was really like, you know what? No, it's okay. I know he's not going to leave me for her. Those are the things that I think most people worry about. Is he going to leave me for her? Well, I knew in this particular case, there was no way in hell he was ever going to leave me for her, just for some other, personality traits that I was like, there's no way. But honestly, and having that safety net was what allowed me to say, no, go forth and do. But then that's led it to have freedoms with other people. And so there is a lot of challenge that comes with that, in letting some of those things go and letting the other person have some freedoms that you weren't really sure about.
Well, how do you know that? And this is probably going to be a common question: is how do you know that Tristan's gonna just be so attracted to her that he's gonna fall in love with her and choose her over you? How do you know that? How do you know that's not gonna happen?
You don't. And so that's part of us staying in constant communication about those things. Now, I've also, though, in our relationship and our dynamic, especially because we are in a relationship with another couple, but we have given each other permission to love other people. This comes from one of our favorite books, The Ethical Slut. If anybody ever reads that, it's not all about non-monogamy. There's a lot of talks about relationships, but it's a great book. It's called The Ethical Slut. And they talk about in there about love is not a pie. And so, time is a pie. You only have so much time. You can't, if you give an hour here, you're not getting it back somewhere else. Money is a pie. You only have so much. You give that dollar away, you don't have any more. Love is not a pie. You have so much love inside of you. Just because I give him all my love doesn't mean there's no love left for my children or my family or my friends. That just doesn't make sense. And so if you can kind of come to grips with that, saying, well, he can love me. He's going to love me. He loves me. We've made it. We have a life together. We built a life together, and that's that love. But now he has this other opportunity, and I have an opportunity to love someone who excites different things in me. And that's what Tristan said, something that I can't give. maybe that's not my personality, but somebody else has the personality that excites him in a different ways. The man that I'm dating now, my boyfriend, which is the husband of his girlfriend, because we're all in the couple together, but he is a challenging person, and that challenges me intellectually in a different way than Tristan does. And so I love that drive just because the way that we work together and the things that we're working on together. And it's just a different way of having a different relationship. And so I think that you worry about those things, but we have, my job is to make sure if I'm feeling worried, I have to come to Tristan and say, I'm worried about this and let me tell you why. And those same types of things. It's that same just making sure, because you don't know that that won't happen, but that's the risk that you take with anything. You take a risk getting into a car every day. You don't know that something's not going to happen. So that our decision was to live this lifestyle, to try it, and if we weren't hurting each other, then we would continue on with it, and it's grown exponentially. So we face those challenges, we acknowledge that those fears are there, and how do we get through them and pass them. And that's part of that communication piece. You can see it's all a big circle,
Right.
it all just works together.
Right, right. Now, if Marina and Tristan can have that type of communication, I think any monogamous relationship can definitely can talk about anything, right? If you guys can maneuver the risk of losing your partner because that partner may, fall in love with somebody else, and that, like you said, there is that risk. You can't guarantee there isn't a risk of that, but you guys can maneuver those tough conversations. That is. That's I think that's awesome, and I hope that our listener can learn something from that. So, what I wanted to ask was that we talked about this before the show, and I'm going to ask Tristan this: is that we talk about your lifestyle, and you said, well, first thing, I don't have the best lifestyle. I don't have the best lifestyle for maintaining optimal sexual health. So, but I don't want to focus on, not because I want to focus on the negativity, but I want to focus on the positivity in that, that you drink perhaps more alcohol than you should, and probably doesn't exercise and doesn't have the best diet, but yet this man in his 50s is having the best sex of his life, and in one night he can have four times sex and orgasm and sexual experiences, and he's in his 50s, but yet, he's not the best at all those stuff. So can you share us about how you feel about that, and just to kind of give our listener, because I want to stress that, hey, he doesn't follow all the rules either, but he's having the best sex of his life.
Yeah, and I don't follow really any of the rules for optimizing health. And as we discussed earlier, yeah, I'm probably 30 pounds overweight. I don't exercise. I have a sedentary job. I drink too much. I don't smoke, and so at least I've got that going for me. But yeah, I have sex on average 10 times a week between Marina and my girlfriend and whomever else may be in the mix in a particular week. And um, so yeah, notwithstanding,
Is that every day? Is that multiple times in a day, right?
yeah, often twice in a day, morning and evening, depending upon again the composition. It might be Marina, it might be combination of Marina and my girlfriend, and just the combinations are pretty infinite. And but yeah, so notwithstanding not following all the health optimizing rules, I'm still able to perform fairly well. And I think that's a function of, well, first of all, I'm just incredibly attracted to my beautiful wife and my beautiful girlfriend, and I love sex. I just love sex, and I love variety, and I love everything about it. And so, yeah, that passion certainly helps. But I think just also the fact that it's its own form of exercise for me, and that really is about the only way that I do exercise is
All right. And, we talked about the analogy of going to the gym when we first met. and it's for you. It's a form of exercise. That's you going to the gym. And I always tell my patients, well, my listeners, you don't use it, you lose it, because the penis is a muscle, and it need to be used. Or if it doesn't, it start to shrink, and the blood flow is going to be altered. So if you don't use it, you lose it. And going to the gym 10 times a week is your exercise. And in fact, for a man, you burn about just 200 calories at the least with sex. So the longer you go, the more calories you burn. It's considered moderate exercise. So that's the zone you want to be in.
So
Look at you,
we
babe.
need
Look
to
at
have
you
more.
go. Moderate exerciser, you.
We need more sex.
You need more sex. I recommend at least a minimum of 3 times a week. So you triple that par.
Yeah, you've tripled it. He's an overachiever. He's an
Yeah.
overachiever.
So Tristan, triple that. So it gets down to you don't use it, you lose it. Now, and the number one cause of contributing to ED is actually increasing alcohol, and it's to drink more alcohol than you should, because it does affect the blood flow and the hormone that's released from your brain. But in Tristan's case, it may not affect him because he's using it. His body is using. He's not popping in Viagra, listeners. He's not popping in medication.
Although like if I do from time, like in new situations and in group situations, I do. But it's not something I use every day, at all, by any stretch. It's an aberrant thing for me to do, but I do find it helpful. I think psychologically, it's kind of like a psychological backstop. But yeah, if I'm going into a big party, and especially if I'm going to be with women I've never met before, yeah, I will pop a Viagra.
Okay. What dose would you take?
I think it's a 20 milligrams. Does that sound right?
Yeah, yeah, 20 milligram. 20 milligram Viagra. It's a low dose, but you don't do it every time you want to get an erection.
Oh no, no, no. Yeah, it's really, I think, more for my peace of mind, feeling like you know, I mean, there's certainly is a physical, a physical aspect and reaction to it, but it's probably more psychological for me.
Right, right, and you got it right on the dot, because it becomes kind of a crutch, like you said, in a group setting that you feel that you need to be performing, and it sometimes be more of a crutch than you think, because 20 milligrams is a pretty low dose, and because it can go up to 110 milligrams, and then but I don't, in your case, but what the point I'm trying to make is that you don't need it every time. And you still can able to get an erection, but medication, what it does is that it hijack. The people that take medication on a regular basis is hijack your natural response to have an erection, because you want to have an erection being aroused and feeling desire, and stimulating the five senses that you have, which is your vision, the smell, the taste, the hearing, and your touch. So you want to bring all those senses to your brain, which then releases hormones and nerve to stimulate the heart for increasing your heart rate, and your nerve to increase your blood vessel to be open, and you have more blood flow that will flow to your penis. So that's all connected to all the five senses. So when you take Viagra, what it does is that it relaxes the penis muscle, so that way it can engorge with the blood flow. But what you're doing is you're disconnecting the brain to the penis.
I love the way that you stated that, because I'm incredibly sensual, and I love, and so you asked me earlier, how do I get back into my body when I am hijacked by being overstimulated or distracted? And that's one of the ways that I do, is I try to, reconnect with the woman that I'm with, and using my senses. And and I love using all of my senses, and particularly scent and taste. And but that was interesting and great to hear you say it that way. And I haven't really thought of it holistically like that, but
Because a man that is paralyzed from the neck down, I mean, he cannot feel anything from the neck down, can get an erection and father children. So that means that he's powering his erection through his five senses of touch in his face. He may not feel in his hand, but he's powering his erection from his brain, and the brain is a larger sexual organ. Don't ever ignore the brain because it nothing happens but below the belt if nothing if you're not taking care of what's above the neck. And so like a paraplegic, I mean a quadriplegic man or a man that's paralyzed from the neck down can have an erection. Then have knowing the fact that the brain is a larger sexual organ, is the most powerful organ. uh, you can have an erection just with your brain alone, with the five senses. Yeah, that the input into the brain to make that happen. So that's why taking ED medication, you hijack your natural response to get an erection because you skip the brain all the way to the penis. You're just taking the medicine to, hey, relax penis, here's the blood flow, and that's why over a period of time, maybe 1 to 3 years, the medication doesn't help anymore. It really doesn't help, and then but it also takes away your confidence in yourself. And hey, I can get an erection because you're thinking, well, I can't perform well without that medication. So it becomes a mental crutch, too. And then you're relying upon it. And so that's why it gets you more in a big black hole than you started out with. And I equate it to almost to like taking opioids, pain medication for pain, because it may treat the symptom. In the long run, you're not treating the cause of your problem at all, just giving you some short-term relief. But then in the long run, you're stuck, because what does a man do when the medication doesn't work anymore? If he doesn't know about what I do, which is increasing blood flow with stem cells and with shockwave therapy and with hormone, what does he do? And I'm seeing men in their 30s, even in their 20s with ED, and you can have 50 years, 40 years of your life. What do you do with that? I mean, how would you feel if you guys don't have sex anymore for the next 30 years?
Yeah, that wouldn't work for me.
That would be tough.
that that would be tough. So, and before we started, Marina had shared something that I was found so fascinating. If you can talk a little bit about how you're able to have multiple orgasm in the night for hours, and you're able to ejaculate now. Just share us a little bit of some of the tips you use.
Sure. Well, I don't know that I can really give very many tips. I will say that before we started in the lifestyle, I did not know any differently, and that when Tristan and I would have sex, I would have an orgasm, usually only manually, only from clitoral stimulation. I never had a vaginal orgasm, and but we had, like I said, it was fine. It was great. I would have an orgasm, he would orgasm, everybody was good, everybody was happy, and then it was done. And then when we got into the lifestyle, just by being with other men and having other opportunities, and my body kind of getting excited in ways that it hadn't been in a long time, I was able to start to experience other things. And so for the first time in my life, I had vaginal orgasms. I did not, for me, they are very different than clitoral orgasms. I had no idea. I thought it was supposed to feel the same both ways. It doesn't, but I have amazing vaginal orgasms now that are totally different than a clitoral orgasm. I love them both.
How were you able to get the vaginal orgasm when you couldn't get it before? What changed?
I was with a different man who had a different penis shape and size than Tristan, and it was fascinating. But he kind of helped me. He is an amazing lover and has been in the lifestyle forever, and kind of helped me say, help say, well, if I feel you, and he would say, I feel you doing that, can you do that more? So he could feel my body, my muscles on the inside. And I was trying to, I didn't even realize it, but you're trying to contract your muscles to be able to wrap around the penis, or whatever I do anyways when we're having sex. And that when those muscles get, inside where you're near your G spot, or what's the other one? The A spot? P spot? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of spots
Right.
in there. I don't know. I just have sex and they all work great, but all those spots. But I think he was able to hit me in a different area. And then and just kind of said, oh, keep doing that. And I would keep doing that. And then all of a sudden I had this orgasm, and I was like, and I stopped him. I said, wait, I think I just had an orgasm. He's like, I think you did. I'm like, let's try that again. And so, because my body shook in a way, I just didn't, but it was so different than a clitoral orgasm for me. It wasn't that, it was a wave from the inside. Whereas when I have an orgasm from manual stimulation or from oral, it comes from my toes up and goes, it's just a different, it's just totally different. And so when he kind of showed me how to start to use my body for myself, then I could start to do that. I can't do it every single time. But I do it a lot more. I mean, there's sometimes where you just, I probably wouldn't orgasm at all. You're just tired. Your body is just not going to do what it needs to do for that particular day. But that was something I'd never done before. And then also what you mentioned was having just one orgasm, being kind of one and done. I was lucky enough to be with a man who, we actually were all together and with his wife, and we were having sex, and I came, and he started to re-stimulate me again. And I said, no, you don't understand. I've already had my orgasm. I'm done. And he said, no, you don't understand. Your body can do more. And I said, no, it can't. And he said, yes, it can. And he said, I'm going to tell you. And when you think you can't take it any longer, go a little bit longer. And I said, all right, I'll try it. I really liked him, and he was hot too. So that helped a lot. We had a great chemistry.
Well, you know that women don't have a refractory period. So, yeah, so take advantage of that.
Right. But I thought that I did. I thought I could only have one orgasm, and that was it. I thought that was what my refractory period was. That I thought that I did. And so because I trusted him, and we had an amazing chemistry, I was able to relax and let him keep going. And it was really challenging because I felt I was overstimulated, and I just didn't even know what to do. And then all of a sudden I had a second orgasm, and then he said he was going to keep going. And I said, okay. And they just became more powerful. And then usually for me, it's faster, and then it kind of ebbs and flows. But, so I was able to have 3 or 4 with him in that particular evening, when we were all together that night. And it was, a game changer. So now there are times where, I think this is what you were talking about earlier, I have one particular play partner that he actually has a sex swing. And I think this lends a lot to it. So I'm in a swing, so I'm totally relaxed. My legs are up, but they're in a sling kind of themselves. And so I'm not having to hold my legs up. So I'm 1,000,000% relaxed, but I'm in a position that allows easy access to my body. And so and I can just lay there, but my legs are still up and open, and I'm just so comfortable that when I can get into that totally relaxed mode, if I'm well hydrated and I am turned on, I can come for hours. And it is like, it's a mess, because I also squirt. I'm a female ejaculation. And so and this particular playmate is an amazing person. He knows women's bodies really, really well. And he knows my body really well. We've been together for almost as long as we've been in the lifestyle. So he's gotten to know my body a lot better, knows my buttons to push. And so, it can be 2 hours that I could be up in that swing, and it's just almost a constant. We're having sex, and he's stimulating me, and I'm having clitoral orgasms and vaginal orgasms, and
we swap out, and so we'll relieve each other, and
so I get another man to come in and pick up where the one needs a break because maybe his hand is tired or his penis is tired, and so. But I'm just relaxed. I'm just there, and it's awesome. And I never thought I would ever even get in a sex swing. I'm not a tiny little person. I'm a huge Amazon woman. I'm over 6 feet.
You're a lovely, lovely Aaron.
Well, thank you. But I was mortified. I would be like, I'm going to be the person that gets in the swing and it's going to fall out of the ceiling, because I'm not tiny. And so I always had that. That's always been like that can mess with you too. That's your mental, that's your brain, your sex organ, blocking you before you can have the chance. So I always would worry about that. And I trusted him, and I trusted being there with Tristan. And it was just an amazing experience, and it's only gotten better and better and better in those same types of things. But I have to be able to really trust the person. I have to know them. And that's why for us, I think in our non-monogamy journey is that being with the partners a couple of times, you get that trust and you get that relaxation. I'm probably faster now than I was. I can build trust faster, and I can be orgasmic with a stranger. When we first started, I definitely could not. I could be orgasmic, but it would, it took a long time to kind of build up that trust and to be multi-orgasmic, but now I'm a lot faster. But same type of thing. You said you don't use it, you lose it. I didn't know I had it, and so I still need to. I'm working on working those muscles and the situations and things like that. But it's
What's working for you is you're relaxed, you're in the moment, you are attuned to your body, you're feeling it, you're in the moment, and it's very sensual. So you're able to tap into the brain or the sensory input of the brain, right? And that will accentuate the body response, and that's why you're able to tap into the multiple orgasm. But you're one of the lucky ones in that only approximately about 15% of women have vaginal orgasm, but yet those numbers are old, and they're not accounting for the modern times. And I'm thinking of women now are attuned to their body. They're perhaps if they have an open relationship or things like that. I think those numbers may increase more. So we don't know whether because they cannot, those numbers because they cannot, because of their anatomy, or because maybe just the situation, their mindset. I believe it's more of the latter than it is the anatomy or or physical. And well, it has to be related to the partner you're with too, right? So the partner what you're with have to be attuned to it, have to be patient, and have to know where to stimulate you as well. Interestingly, in a monogamous heterosexual relationship, only about 30% of women actually have orgasm, when they have sex. And but 99% of men do. Um, yeah, so that's something to. That's why I want to throw out those numbers. But having said that, I've learned so much about uh, talking to you and tapping into your strength of communication, vulnerability, and asking for what you want. And it's not just in a swinging relationship; it's in any type of relationship is ask for what you want, but in an open, vulnerable manner, and be amazed at what result you can get. So thank you for being with me today. I was really looking forward to this podcast, and I've been listening to your podcast as well. So where can our listener get a hold of you and listen to your podcast?
So, well, our podcast, you can listen anywhere that you can find a podcast that you listen to yours, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, any of those. And it's just called Accidental Swingers. So if you search, that will come up. I did want to say really fast one other thing about podcasts and about people being able to ask for what they want. Tristan and I talk about this often for folks who you don't have to go into the non-monogamous lifestyle to spice your marriage up. Communication is definitely key, but you don't have to do what we do. But there are ways to spice up your marriage that can help your sex life. Talking about your fantasies, that's a huge thing. We have a lot of people, though, that will also listen to podcasts. And we've met a lot of amazing people that will come up to us and they'll say, and it's true on both sides. We've had husbands come up and we've had wives come up and said, I listened to your podcast first, and then I had my husband listen to it. And then that opened up the conversation, and we started talking about maybe opening up our marriage. And now we're in the lifestyle. Sometimes people will say they'll listen to a podcast and then they'll say, hey, honey, you should listen to this too. What do you think? And maybe they don't open up their marriage, but they start talking about some of the cool fantasies that they could have, much like we did when those real sex shows came on. That's what started us talking about our fantasies and things. And there's just ways that you can do stuff. Like we talk a lot about, there's a resort down here in Tampa called Caliente, and they are very lifestyle friendly. They're actually a clothing optional community. People live there, but they have their beautiful resort, and they cater to lifestylers. So there's a lot of sex and things going on, and you can go there and just be as naked as you want, or not, as you can wear your full bathing suits, but there's a whole sexual vibe, a sexual energy there that that you can just kind of tap into your voyeuristic side and just sit back and relax and watch it all and just take it in. And that's just another amazing way to kind of spice up your relationship, just kind of doing a voyeur thing. And there's just tons of ways that you can do things that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go out and have sex with other people, but talking about it might be super fun. Watch a movie that's like kind of racy and talk to your partner about, oh my God, what would you ever do that? What would you ever do? Like if someone came on to you and wanted to kiss you and I said it was okay, would you kiss them? So there's ways to have these conversations, and it doesn't necessarily have to lead into, yeah, I want to go have sex with other people, but it can certainly help what you're talking about, sparking up some of that brain activity, because that's what it's about. Read books together. Tristan and I would listen to podcasts when we first were starting to get into the lifestyle. We were debating on whether or not this was going to work. And before we even had our first play date, and we listened to We Got a Thing by the Joneses. They were our age. We connected with them, and we would start to listen to the podcast together at night in bed. And we would get like 5 minutes in and we would pause and we would talk about, oh, would you do that? I don't know. What would happen if you did that? If we did that, what would happen if we did that and we got in trouble, and things. And we talked a lot of it out. And most of the time we couldn't even make it through the podcast. We get so hot and turned on, we'd end up turning it off and having sex. And so I highly recommend listening to hot podcasts that, even if I never in a million years would ever do this. Well, then great. Live vicariously through a podcast. And then you can have just amazing, great sex. So if you want to listen to our podcast, it's the Accidental Swingers, but there are tons of them out there. And if you want other ideas and thoughts about what might work for you, there are podcasts with people in the lifestyle that are in the same sex relationships. So if that's who you are, then there are podcasts about that as well. But you can find us, Accidental Swingers Podcast. You can find us on Instagram also, if you can follow us at Accidental Swingers. I manage that account. Tristan manages his, which is at Myrina's Tristan. On Instagram. You can also find us on Twitter. It's at Myrina Tristan, but if you search Accidental Swingers, it'll come up. It just couldn't fit it in on the tag. And then eventually there are some things on YouTube. There's a few extra other interviews that we've done on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, just Accidental Swingers, search us, and that will come up. And then our podcast is going to start going live with video. There are a few of our episodes are on YouTube, but they don't have video to them. But we're going to start doing a video component as well to our podcast. So you can watch us starting this fall.
All right. Yes. And you can watch them also on this podcast, because this will be also on YouTube as well actually probably in a few weeks as well. And I'll put all their links on the social link on the show notes. You can click on it there, and as well as their podcast. But I wanted to say that thanks for stressing that, because it's not about swinging or being swinger or anything. It's about doing things together and communicating and growing and learning together, right? If you are growing, you are learning, progressing together in your life, then it becomes more interesting. You're stimulating the brain with your partner, because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again with the same partner, your brain's not stimulated. You may become bored. Nothing wrong with that, and a lot of people live with that type of relationship, but it makes it more interesting as if you grow and learn and share and communicate with each other. And that's exactly what you had just said at that point. So thank you for being on this podcast, and thank you for sharing your experience and all your golden nuggets for today. And we'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Sexual Health for Men podcast. If you love this episode, then please take a screenshot on your phone and post it on Facebook, Instagram, or wherever you post. And be sure to tag me and let me know why you like this episode and what you like to hear in the future. That will help me know what's great for you, and I would love to give you the most incredible free gift designed to help you improve performance quickly. Go to my website at sexualhealthformenpodcast.com to get the book, The 5 Common Costly Mistakes Men Make When Facing ED. I would appreciate it if you subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and just know that you can have sexual vitality for life. I appreciate you. Until next time.